Hello, this is Ellen Butler, and I write the Karina Cardinal Mystery Series. When you walk the halls of power, make sure your wits and stilettos are razor sharp. You are listening to the Dark and Stormy Book Club podcast.
Hello. Happy New Year. We are back for our first semi-live episode of 2023. I hope your holidays were good and the new year is prosperous, healthy, and happy for all of us. We are going to discuss the long-awaited Death and the Conjurer today. Enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we're going to talk about
Death and the Conjurer, a locked room mystery by Tom Mead, was published in July of 2022 by Mysterious Press.
We assigned this book back in September, but so many different things happened, we never got it covered, but we want to make sure we cover it today. So, Tracy, let's hear a synopsis.
In 1930s London, celebrity psychiatrist Anselm Rees is discovered dead in a locked study, and there seems to be no way that a killer could have escaped unseen. There are no clues or witnesses, no evidence of a murder weapon. Stumped by the confounded scene, the Scotland Yard detective on the case calls on retired stage magician turned part-time sleuth Joseph Spector, who better to make sense of this impossible whodunit. Spector has a knack for explaining the inexplainable, but even his finds there leads more to the mystery than meets the eye. As he and the inspector interview the colorful cast of suspects around the psychiatrist's patients and household, they uncover no shortage of dark secrets or motives for murder. As the investigation dovetails into that of apparently impossible theft, the detective considers the possibility that two transgressions are related, and when a second murder occurs, this time in an impenetrable elevator, they realize that the crime wave will become even deadlier unless they catch the culprit soon.
All right. Well, the main character was, even though he was murdered, is
Anselm
Rees,
a eminent psychiatrist. He had a group of patients that were, how would you describe them?
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, they needed psychiatric help.
He had a small group of patients
right,
that he saw regularly. He was older and
semi-retired.
yeah.
He had an actress, a writer, and a famed musician. Those were his three main patients that he dealt with. And he would see them in his home. He was found murdered in a room that was locked from the inside, and no one recalled seeing anybody go in or come out, at least to start with. Kathy?
Oh, well, lots of people came in and out that particular night.
First, they kept saying nobody came in, and then all of a sudden, well, this one was here, and this one was here, and this one went out the window.
Anselm Rees was the poor victim, and he had a daughter her name was Lydia. She lived in the house with him, but she was out for the night with her fiancé, Marcus Bowman.
She was a psychiatrist.
She was
also.
correct. She was also trained as a psychiatrist. Then we have the three different patients. Patient A was the violinist, Floyd Stenhouse. He was a
Weird.
very interesting character.
I agree.
Different.
Yes. He had these vivid, horrific dreams.
Yes.
Then there was patient B, who was Della Cookson. She was the actress. She was a kleptomaniac.
Yep.
Then we had patient C, who was Claude Weaver, and he was a mystery novelist. He claimed to have fugue states.
Yep.
And his wife made him go to the psychiatrist.
I think it should be noted that the reason they're referred to as patient A, B, and C, so he can discuss this with his daughter without referring to who they really are.
He discussed everything with his daughter. She knew who they were, but he would publish his findings and notes, and he would keep their identities confidential so that it wasn't public knowledge.
But they didn't have HIPAA back then.
I wonder if that was practiced at the time.
I don't
I
think so.
don't think so.
I don't think any form of
Yeah.
it was back then.
Yeah, so I'm not certain that that was true to life.
Then we have the police detective,
George
Flint, and he was having difficulty solving this mystery. So he called upon his good friend or acquaintance, Joseph Spector, who was a famous magician who was up in years.
Yeah, kind of semi-retired as well.
Right.
He did odd jobs like this on the side because he liked figuring out the puzzles.
Puzzles, yeah.
Mhm. There was a housekeeper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she played a
She played a big
definitely.
part.
Yeah,
Olive
Yeah, Olive.
Olive played a big role in the investigation because she was the main witness, really. So in the house, it's both Dr. Rees, the father and daughter, and the housekeeper.
Right. There are 2 murders and an art theft in this story.
And all of them are locked room type mysteries.
It was really an interesting format for
We know if this is a series. It sounds like it's
it
going to be a
appears,
series.
yeah, it
was
appears
book
so.
1. He's got another locked room book out now. This book had so many red herrings, twists and turns. You didn't know who was who, what was going on. To me, it was very not confusing, but
And I think the writer did a good job with the locked room, but you said there was too much going on. I think too many suspects.
What I found was that the author was setting this up. I mean, he even stops at one point about maybe 2/3 of the way through the book, and he says, interlude. We
Yeah.
have given you all of the information you need to solve this mystery. And, basically putting a challenge out to the reader.
Yeah, that's kind of like in TV, breaking the third wall or the fourth wall. I don't know which one they call it, where you start to refer to your audience instead of just telling a story. I mean, some people may enjoy that.
When he said that you now have all the information, I thought, okay, well, we'll see how this turns out. And he wrapped it all up in the end, of course. But there was information that not everybody would know about. For instance,
Well-
do you know how an alarm clock works?
of course I don't.
And do you know what India rubber, how that's used?
No. but
No. You need
according-
specific information to have solved this crime.
Now, we 3 all listened to this book. It
Multiple
said
times.
in the reviews that I was reading about the book to get a taste for what others thought of it. It said that in the book, he told you exactly what page different clues were on.
Oh,
We
really?
didn't get that listening to it, but it said apparently through the book, the author kept giving you.
How
telling
did he
you
do
what
that?
page- I don't know. I don't know.
But were they like highlighted in the
Yeah,
book
I
or something
guess,
like that?
or-
This is a clue.
Or page notes that
Oh, I
Oh.
don't think I'd like that.
No.
when Spector gathers all the suspects together at the end, he launches into pages of dialogue explaining all three mysteries at one time with only one or two action breaks. The author provided notes on which pages the clues were hidden throughout the book.
Oh, okay.
The book reminded me of a Sherlock Holmes episode, but at least with that, you would have been shown his thought process, how they freeze Sherlock
Oh,
Holmes.
we forgot to say that this review of this book will include some spoilers. We won't give away the complete ending, so we hope you read it. And this book is very short. It's only, what was it,
270 pages. Depending
Like I
on
said, I think that it was ambitious in its attempt to solve 3 locked room mysteries in one book. And it was obviously successful. I mean, there was a conclusion at the end, and everything except one thing was answered. It's a spoiler, so
I think that if I was going to give some props to the author, I would say that he did spend some time on each one of the suspects and really go into depth on information about them.
character development.
So yes, I would give him some props on that.
And I do have to say, he's a very talented writer.
Oh, yes.
He had a very good way with a turn of phrase. This one phrase, I just keep remembering it over and over again. And every time I heard it while listening to it, it just struck me that the landlady had red hair. It was hair redder than hair has ever been or will ever be again. And
Okay.
it just struck me as a very interesting turn of phrase in his description.
He also did a good job of capturing the time period. I knew exactly where I was at any given time in the book.
I agree, except we talked
Excuse
about
me.
the confidentiality. Not sure it was true to life. And I'm not sure if fingerprints were studied at the time forensically.
They were studied, but it wasn't.
At the time in the 30s?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
they started doing fingerprints back in the end of the 1800s.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
just
sure about
wasn't-
things like that.
It wasn't as scientific as it is now, or was.
As it purports
As
to
it-
be now.
Yeah.
I looked that up because I was curious about it too. Believe it or not, fingerprints were used as early as 300 BC in Japan.
Really?
Yes. But fingerprints were first accepted by U.S. courts in 1911.
What
Well,
about English?
Fair enough. I think they would have caught on by the 30s if the U.S. was doing it in
The
1911.
English began using fingerprints July 1858.
I knew it was before 1900 because they were using fingerprints when they were looking for Jack the Ripper. But it says in one of the reviews said that book is like a puzzle with too many pieces.
And that's true.
That's an accurate statement. I would agree with that. I found myself getting lost. I will admit, sometimes when I'm listening to any book, I'm at work. But if a book really grabs me, I can keep up with it. And this one, I found myself rewinding quite a bit.
Yeah.
They immediately suspected one of the patients. So there were 3 patients, and then there was the daughter. Of course, they always look at the closest family members.
Right. And her fiance.
And her fiance. Daughter and the fiance, they alibied each other. So that's
Right.
always a little questionable. Patient A was Floyd Stenhouse. He had almost 2 pat of alibi.
Was he the
and-
one that used his wife?
No, that's Claude Weaver, the
Okay.
novelist. Now, he said he had an alibi. He was having a dinner with his publisher, but then his publisher said, oh, no, he left early.
Right.
So he wound up not having an alibi. And then Della Cookson, she was present at each of the 3 locked room mysteries. So that was very suspicious as well. So there, like you said, a lot of red herrings and a lot to go through
And
to
it
try to
was,
figure it out.
it was the musician who insisted on going out the window, wasn't it?
Yes. He didn't want to be seen by the
By-
daughter.
Everybody had a quirk.
Well, that leads to why they're there
To begin with.
Yes.
Oh, and then there was the patient that Anselm Rees had failed with years ago who had killed himself in Vienna.
Yes.
And his daughter played a role in it as well. So there was a lot of angles that were hard to keep track of.
Whenever I'm reading any mystery, is there's very few new reasons why people get murdered, unless it's a violent crime. So that kind of led to me figuring this out.
Okay.
Well, I figured it out, and then
Yeah, there were a couple times I
got
wavered.
bent in another direction.
Well, the problem with it was you could almost like say, okay, I can figure out who did it. But the real
Yeah,
trick of
why?
it was, how did they do it?
Yes.
Well, that's the whole thing with the locked room mystery. So I really feel that some people are going to really enjoy this book. If you like historicals and locked rooms are your thing, I think this is your cup of tea. I think for somebody who just wants a clean mystery, this is not going to be your cup of tea.
It's set up to be a series, and Joseph Spector is the main character in the series. And he's supposed to be elderly, so let's see how long this can last.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Miss Marple had a good run.
Yep.
The other thing in this, because he's a magician, he gave the secrets away to quite a few magician's tricks in
Yes,
this.
he
Yeah.
did.
That's true.
And I was like, I have never read a book that did that. And I think that's against the magician's code. So Tom Mead, I don't know, you might have a few magicians out for your blood after that.
Well, Kathy, you found some information on locked rooms. Why don't you enlighten us of what you found?
Well, I got the information from novelsuspects.com. It's called Captivating Tales, Why We Love Locked Room Mysteries by Aaron Roll. And just a few bullet points from this article. Locked rooms have fascinated readers for about 200 years, and we think of Agatha Christie and Arthur Conan Doyle as probably the most famous
John
authors.
Dickinson Carr wrote quite a few too.
Yes. Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, is considered to be the very first account of a locked room mystery. And the question is, what is a locked room? In case the readers have never come across one. A locked room could be any confined space, a train, a plane, boat, elevator, cars. It could also be a fabulous beach resort on an island or a ski lodge in the mountains, any location where the means of ingress or egress are limited. And this raises the stakes as the witnesses realize they are trapped in there with a murderer who may yet kill again. It could be a subtle manipulation of the time of death to give others the impression that the victim was alive at a much earlier time, or some kind of drama played out in public to give the prime suspect a cast iron alibi. And as we said, in this case, the how did they do it is probably more important than
Who did it?
who did it in most locked room mysteries. And some of the possibilities are that the victim may already be dead and the killer can be impersonating them. They might have put a slow acting poison in the victim's food or drink at an earlier time, or tampered with their medicine. Of course, there's always the ever popular secret passage behind the bookshelf or the giant painting on the wall. So all of these different methods could be the answer to how things were done. Basically, why do we like the locked room? And it's concluded by this author that nobody likes a straightforward mystery. If it were obvious who the killer is and why they did it, it wouldn't be a mystery. The locked room mystery is a form that keeps us guessing, turning the clues over and putting the pieces together over and over until the very last page. And that's why it has appealed to generations of mystery lovers over the centuries and will likely continue to do so.
Very
Very
good.
good.
Well, I found the book slow moving at first, but then it picked up after the old guy got murdered. It was not my cup of tea. I will say that. It was a good book, but just not one that I would read again.
I thought it was ambitious of the author. I thought it was well written. I might try to read the second in the series to see how he progresses. I thought it was a good first effort.
Good.
That's a good way to put it. When I first found out about this book, I was very intrigued. It hit all my buttons as far as historical. It was a magician working with the Scotland Yard, and it was a locked room. I thought, oh my goodness, I am going to enjoy this ride. I think it fell short.
Trivia. Tim Dorsey writes a mystery series featuring Sergei A. Storm. What makes him unique among mystery protagonists? A. He is blind. B. He's transgender. C. He has amnesia. Or D. He suffers from several types of mental illness. The answer is D. He is described as tall and thin, but muscular with dark hair shot through with gray. Sergei has been diagnosed with a variety of mental diseases and has been prescribed a cocktail of drugs to keep him stable. His name is a pun on storm surge, most often described as intense in personality. He is a vagrant with a voracious intellect and an encyclopedic knowledge of Florida history. But he's prone to periods of focus that lead him to commit brutal and sometimes elaborately planned and staged acts of violence. This week's question is, which mystery author is famously quoted as saying, "If it sounds like writing, then I rewrite it"? A. Elmore Leonard. B. Dan Brown. C. Clive Cussler. Or D. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Good luck. Well, that wraps up our first episode for 2023. I hope you enjoyed it, and you'll join us next week when we have another book we would like to share with you. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery.
Bye.